started in 1954.
1957.
1961.
In 1963 officially.
And that was 1967.
1979.
1982.
1986.
1986.
88, so 8th of August 1988.
There was little or no computing in those days, and you got to know the system and what it might do until it was almost in your blood.
It was certainly a very intimate knowledge of the network, the people on it, the geography and the communities. And of course, across the Highlands and Islands in particular, you got to know a lot of people and some of the different traits and cultures in the different communities.
Can remember the days of the tully lamp hissing away, the battery radio playing away in the background on a Saturday night. That idea of helping to electrify the rural communities appealed to me.
The locals felt that the hydroport was part of their community. It was their hydroport.
There was great folklore existed then, of course, about the big storms. Post-war storm in 1947 brought lines down, and some of the original transmission lines from the likes of Tummel down into Fife and across to Bonnybridge and into South Scotland. These were crucial arteries. There was a crew lost up the small glen. Fortunately, Amoree Hotel still existed and they managed to get back there. And they were so proud of these stories. And believe me, the conditions were atrocious. And the warm weather gear was nothing like what we supply today.
Almost the first day when I was on as a control engineer in charge of the transmission system, there was a lightning strike and the north of the system split away from the south. When the system split, it was already arranged that Fastener Kyle would look after frequency control in the north and he would control it and get it down to reasonable. We were getting it down, it was getting close. As we were pulling it down together, the two of these relays said, "Oh," and we closed, much to my surprise. But that was what a control engineer had to be ready for.
We experienced an absolutely horrendous snowstorm, about 680, I think it was. Distribution wood poles snapped. 3 or 4 transmission towers collapsed due to the weight of the ice. Part of the failures were actually in the foundation. The weight was so much that it pulled the plugs of concrete out and pulled the towers over. That was a major event. It led to us looking at reinforcing the lines and also improving methods of communication with the customer.
I've seen us digging tunnels through snow banks 6 foot high. I've seen circuit breakers explode because the 132 kV conductors came down on the lines and the circuit breakers exploded. Things difficult to appreciate nowadays.
In my time, I remember very, very little objections. One that springs to mind was the line down to Foyers Power Station. And this proved to be extremely difficult because the local owner was Jimmy Page of Led Zeppelin. The board had no idea how to deal with somebody like him. And eventually, of course, the last bit down to the power station had to be undergrounded.
When I joined, I was pretty much fresh out of training, really, and I joined in Fort William. I was part of the district engineering team. A great place to work and get some basic experience.
I was a young engineer and I'd had enough of low voltage stuff then. I wanted high voltage. That was the turn on for me. So I saw a job advertised with the old North of Scotland Hydroelectric Board and came up to the Western Isles as a second engineer in those days and had a great time.
I've got a bit of a family connection with SSEN Transmission, or Scottish Hydroelectric as it was in those days. My father was actually a linesman working on the transmission network. I remember my father climbing towers, pylons. When I was about an 18, 19-year-old student, I tried to climb a pylon. I made it the first cross arm and thought, this isn't for me.
I was always interested in systems being interconnected, and in Shetland, when the diesels were operating, I was fascinated with the flows between each one as you adjust the voltage and the fuel there. And then when Silmavo Oil Terminal got connected, we synchronized between the two systems and started to transfer power. I remember being fascinated that we couldn't just push lots of power through the line. There came a point when the voltage collapsed, and I'm thinking that's fascinating, because I've not come across this before. And that's the type of thing that really sparked an interest in working in grid control.
I became an operations and maintenance engineer in a section. I ran a distribution control room, all the lines north of Inverness, east towards Elgin and west towards the Western Isles. The responsibility was amazing. I would never have got that down south. So yes, I had a great time, and I met a great bunch of people.
So I worked on several brand new transmission substation projects where we constructed new transmission substations to enable the connection of renewable generation. So one of those projects was Griffin substation. Whilst the tower foundations were getting installed, there was 6 feet of snow fell over the weekend. Just gave us an idea of the environmental challenges involved in construction.
The history took another turn. Our company merged with Southern Electric to form SSE. That merger was primarily bringing together the strengths of the two supply businesses and the two distribution businesses, both in the north of Scotland and in the south of England. In the north of Scotland, however, we had some unique differences in that a very big generation portfolio with Peterhead and also all the hydros. We've also had the uniqueness of a transmission business in the north of Scotland, which was new to the merger.
Backroom staff had to really punch above their weight to make their argument clearly heard. And I think, although it was a small staff, the fact we were dealing with some very large companies, I think history tells the way we protected the old hydroelectric share of power transfer capability is a great credit to the people. During privatization and during regulatory reviews, they maintained that influence. And I think the company nowadays has greatly benefited from that origin.
The culture in this organisation, I think, at heart has never changed. It always felt as quite a family-orientated kind of business.
People that care about the end customer, but care about having good solutions that are not too extravagant. Ideally solving problems with lots of clever people. We're very good at that as a company, that you may not have the answer, but you know somebody that might do, and collaboratively work together. And I think that's right from the early 80s until now. I've seen that.
You need to be calm, level-headed. Every day is different, and I think especially during a storm, you've got to have that drive to help customers out. You need to make sure that you think about them, keep the power on, but you've got to also do it safely. We always put safety first for our staff and for ourselves. But working in the middle of the night, 2 o'clock in the morning, minus 10 degrees, whatever, you've got to have a certain mentality as well to do that.
The fun is to getting people back on supply again. We hate people being off. We do everything we can. We throw everything at it, and that is fun.
People expect it to be a 24/7 industry, and people have got to be willing to come out in all weathers, and they do. And I have a great deal of admiration for the people who do that.
I think we earn trust if we said we were going to put in community paths, or we were going to mitigate, noise. we delivered on our promises with regards to that, and I think we continue to get better at that. There was a lot of innovation going on within the organisation. It's easy to forget how much we learned and how much we changed. We didn't have any 400 kV AC. We didn't have any 220 kV AC. We didn't have any HVDC. Our voltage control equipment really comprised of reactors. We didn't have all these modern state-of-the-art widgets, as I would call them. So these pieces of kit were being added to the grid, and we were learning as we went along, also doing things that was helping the whole of the UK electricity transmission industry.
I think a lot of times transmission doesn't get the recognition it deserves. I think there's no transition to net zero without transmission.
The world's moved on, it's much faster paced now. The real kind of centrality, if you like, of the transmission grid now, not just to Highland life, but to the whole country now, it's changed dramatically. We are not just a Highland grid, we're now the grid for the whole of the UK.
I wish I was coming back. I'd like to be involved in getting that 400 kV system up and running. I wish I could buy 10 years back, because that's what I'll be doing. I'll be knocking on the nearest manager's door and say, can I come in please, and can I do a bit of this?
I think the transmission system that is now being developed will be seen as a very significant moment in the history of the transmission system, and in the history of the north of Scotland.